A brazen racist demands that a black woman be thrown off a flight, but didn't know that this was a former FBI agent. At first glance, it looked like a racist incident. But there was something more in the air, something that could cost lives. When undercover FBI agent Maya Johnson boards Flight 287 from Chicago to Washington, she expects to simply fly home. But everything goes wrong the moment business class is unavailable and her seat is in question. One confrontation in the cabin sets off a chain of events that uncovers an international conspiracy. And soon, the plane becomes more than just a means of transportation. It's an arena for survival and truth. Maya Johnson hated flying, especially in coach, especially after a 6-month undercover sting, when all she wanted was coffee, a shower, and sleep. And silence. But the morning flight from Chicago to Washington quickly reminded her that silence isn't always an achievable goal. "Sorry, but this is my seat," she said calmly, stopping at row 13F. The man, about 50 years old and graying at the temples, didn't even look at her. "No, you're mistaken. I have a seat by the window here." Maya checked her boarding pass. 13F, that's right. "I have a ticket." She held out the document. The man sighed, as if he had been torn away from something important, and reluctantly took the paper. "See? I have 13F. Apparently a system error." He handed her the ticket back and looked over his glasses. "Listen, I'm on a business trip. I'm tired." His voice became louder. "Maybe you could move?" Several heads turned. The stewardess was already approaching. "Excuse me, what's the problem?" Her voice was soft, but firm. Maya showed the ticket. The man grimaced, but stood up, whispering, "God forbid I offend anyone, especially today." The neighbor on the right, a young guy with headphones, took them off and nodded to Maya. She sat down silently. The plane began to taxi. The noise of the engines drowned out the conversations, but tension hung in the air. Across the aisle, an elderly woman was loudly commenting on impudence and modern youth, glancing at the young man with Middle Eastern features sitting next to her. He was silent, his eyes downcast. Maya felt a familiar irritation rise up inside her. She wasn't in the mood to interfere. Not yet. But this was all too on the surface, too revealing. The first 20 minutes of the flight passed quietly. Some fell asleep, some turned on their laptops. Maya pretended to read, but all her attention was on the people. The man who had given up his seat, Richard, she would later learn, had glanced at her several times. Sharp, attentive, not the usual irritation, not fatigue, something else. Then, business class movement, noise, voices. "Is there a doctor on board?" The guy with the headphones unbuckled himself, quickly, without hesitation. He walked to the front of the cabin. Maya recognized him as the student who had been scolded by the older woman. He introduced himself as Tariq Aziz, a medical intern. He worked clearly and calmly while the flight attendants fussed. The passenger, an elderly man, lay unconscious, his face pale. About 5 minutes later, he came to. Maya was already on her feet, standing a little to the side, not interfering, but she watched. Always. When things calmed down, she noticed. Richard had gone pale. He was looking at the victim with concern. This was not just a passenger. They knew each other. And that was bad. Later, when the plane was quiet, she pulled out her office phone. The secure network was working, but intermittently. She wrote a short message. "Confirm identity. Richard Whitfield. 13F. Contact with passenger from business class. Visual, Walter Mason. Communication possible. Checking the Atlant Foundation. There was no answer yet, but she didn't expect a quick response. As she watched, Tariq returned to his seat. His face was slightly tired, but not tense. He had been in situations like this before, you could tell. He noticed Maya looking at him and nodded. Maya nodded back. She was about to sit down again when she caught Richard's gaze. He wasn't looking at the passenger he'd saved. He was looking at Tariq, and the look in his eyes left no doubt. It wasn't gratitude. Soon the flight attendant began serving drinks. Richard took the water and then, almost in a whisper, said, "You are not who you say you are." Maya looked straight at him. "Sorry?" "It's not just a place. It's an observation point, isn't it?" She didn't answer. He grinned and turned to the window. Everything became clear. He knew. Both the test and the change of location were part of the game. Only now Maya didn't know who was testing whom. The plane was flying at an altitude of 11,000 meters, and under her feet was a case that could become the most serious in her career. Or the last. The flight continued. The tension eased a little, but Maya did not relax. She knew it was only the beginning. From the moment Walter Mason woke up and met Richard Whitfield's gaze, the puzzle in the agent's head began to come together. The flight attendants bustled about, handing out drinks and apologizing for the incident. People returned to their books and gadgets. Only Maya continued to watch. Richard was typing something on his phone without looking up. Every now and then he glanced at Tariq, who had put his headphones back on and closed his eyes. It seemed like it was all over for him. But Maya could see. He was tense. He was waiting for something. Her secure phone vibrated faintly. She glanced at the screen. The answer had arrived. Richard Whitfield, CEO of Whitfield Logistics, suspected of ties to international medical equipment supply through shadow schemes. The Atlas Foundation is a confirmed affiliation. Walter Mason is a former federal FDA inspector. The connection between the two has been active for the past 6 months. Maya felt a chill inside. She leaned back in her chair, pretending to doze, but she was mentally running through the details. What were a former official and a corruption suspect doing on the same flight? Why were they both on guard? And what did Tariq have to do with it? 40 minutes after the incident, something went wrong again. One of the passengers noticed that someone was taking too long in the toilet. The flight attendants knocked, but there was no answer. The tension was growing. A large man, tall, with a short haircut, got up from business class. He said something quickly to one of the flight attendants and looked at Richard. Nod. Too coordinated. A minute later, a man came out of the toilet with a canvas bag wrapped in a blanket. He silently returned to 1A. Outwardly, there was nothing suspicious, but Maya knew that this could not happen. She got up, went to the kitchen area under a pretext, and typed a message through the backup channel. Suspected physical transfer of cargo. Possible biomaterial. Visual fix. Need to check passenger 1A. Confirm legitimacy of boarding team in Charlotte. The connection was weak, but she hoped the message had gotten through. When she returned, she saw Tarek standing in the aisle and discussing something with the crew. He noticed her and came closer. "You're not just a passenger," he said quietly. "I'm not here by accident either." They retired to the kitchen area. "Who are you?" Maya asked. "Intern, medical center in Boston. But a year ago, my brother disappeared. The last time he was seen was at a clinic that was financed by that very foundation. I tried to get an investigation, but no one responded. I was told that there would be a person connected to the Foundation on this flight. I bought a ticket. I just wanted to understand who he was and where he was going. Maya looked at him appraisingly. Don't do anything stupid. Don't try to contact them directly. I didn't plan to. He nodded. But if you're working for the feds, I think we should team up. A few minutes later, an announcement came from the cabin. Due to a repeated complaint about the health of one of the passengers, the plane will make an unscheduled landing in Charlotte. Maya glanced at Walter, who was sitting quietly, holding a glass of water. He was fine. So it was a setup. She glanced at Richard, who was already typing something on his phone. They're up to something, Tarek whispered. They are going to leave early, and most likely without luggage. Maya quietly returned to her place and began to prepare. Plan B, in case of interception, hide the flash drive with data, send coordinates, but she hoped that on the ground she would meet real people. The plane was descending. Houses and the runway appeared through the window. Everything inside her was cramped. She managed to send the final message. Requesting verification with agents at the airport. Suspect infiltration. If delayed, switch to mode D, I am +1, the rest are potentially armed. She knew that after landing, time would be short, and the chances would be even smaller. As the plane touched down, the cabin was silent. The flight attendants smiled, repeating standard instructions, but their faces were tense. Maya immediately noticed that 2 men in airport security uniforms had entered the cabin. Their faces were unfamiliar. She hadn't seen either of them in the database, and she remembered them quickly. Richard Whitfield was the first to rise. He didn't even look at Walter, who seemed to be sleeping. The man with the bag from 1A also moved toward the exit. Maya caught his glance, fleeting but attentive. She stood up and motioned for Tariq to follow her. As they approached the ramp, one of the employees invited them to come forward, supposedly for questioning about the incident in the air. Maya showed her ID. Special Agent Johnson, FBI, confirmed jurisdiction, contact regional coordinator. The man froze. Agent? He asked again. Because it was a classified operation, Maya answered harshly. At that moment, a man in civilian clothes stepped out of the van. Maya recognized him as Agent Daniel King. He nodded. They are not with us, he said briefly. The situation changed instantly. One of the fake guards reached for his pocket, but King was faster. A scuffle ensued. Maya parried the stun gun. Tariq managed to dodge. A minute later, one attacker was overpowered, and the second fled to the service entrance. Let him through, Maya said. Let's see who he's going to see. King did not argue. They took the detainee to the service area. He was silent, his gaze empty. According to the database, he was unknown. No documents. Only an internal mark on his jacket. The embroidery of an elite private security company, which they had already encountered in the investigation of the Atlantic Consortium. He won't blab, King said. He's probably a contractor. They'll get in touch and they'll just never find him. Then we need to speak quickly, Maya nodded. We don't have much time. They connected to a secure channel. On the screen were scans of transactions, supply contracts, route sheets from Singapore and Lagos, cargo movement data signed by Richard Whitfield. But one file was different. Internal correspondence that spoke of a specific shipment and mentioned Type 4B objects. Tarek turned pale. 4B is a code in medical classification. This is how minor donors are marked. We'll publish this, Maya said quietly. But first, the arrest. Message from the observer. Target moving toward the south gate. Passenger 1A has entered the black SUV. King is tailing. He won't leave? Asked Tarek. We'll smoke him out. But this is just the beginning. 15 minutes later, King reported that the car had left the security zone and stopped at the warehouse terminal. It looked like they were going to load or unload. Let's go through the east entrance. There's a plan, Maya said. They approached from the other side. Tariq stayed outside. Maya slipped into the shadows between the containers. The SUV was empty, but there were people in the hangar. At least 3. One of them was talking on a satellite phone. If she's not stopped, she'll go all the way. And the guy too. Not as easy as it seemed. Maya recorded the conversation on a microphone. It was risky to proceed further, without a warrant, without support. But there was no choice. She passed the signal to King. 10 minutes later, the local FBI office arrived on the scene. Proven. The assault began. Everything happened quickly, with almost no shooting. 2 were detained. 1 escaped. Containers were found inside. Not medical equipment. Clothes, personal belongings, and separate sealed packages with documents and medical records. All of them were for minors. It was later revealed that these children were listed as missing. Many were from areas where the Foundation's mobile clinics operated. They were going to ship them through Canada, one of the agents said. That's just one of the points. Maya looked at Tarek. He didn't ask anything. He just stood there, clenching his fists. We'll find your brother too, she said. Or those who were with him. He nodded silently. Now they had proof. They had names. All that was left was to make sure the truth didn't disappear with them. The Charlotte operation was just the tip of the iceberg. An hour after the arrests, Maya received a message from Washington. 2 detainees had been released without explanation. The search warrant had been revoked, and the digital footprints had been erased. This meant only one thing. The Atlanta Consortium had patrons at the federal level, and they had already begun to act. Maya, Tariq, and King remained in the airport terminal, formally as witnesses to the incident, but essentially isolated. Access to passenger areas was blocked. Their movements were tracked. Even attempts to connect to the network were recorded and blocked. They're clearing us out, King said briefly, looking at the darkened laptop screen. They started from the top. We have copies, Maya reminded, and most importantly, a living witness. Walter Mason was nowhere to be found. He was not listed in the database of those who had been flown out, nor among those detained. That was bad. It meant that he had been taken outside the protocols, and time was running out. Maya brought up a map of the airport's service corridors on the screen. Look, she pointed to the area between the cargo hangar and the southern exit. There are no cameras here. They could be holding him there. We're catching up, Tariq said, already standing up. Stop. They won't be going there alone. They'll need a head start. You're with me. King, stay in the team and track the equipment. If we go missing, pass it on to the federal prosecutor, the hotline, the media, even the New York Times. King nodded. He had that very experience when you can only trust information, not structures. They made their way through the technical corridor. Signs saying service entrance, empty warehouses, concrete walls. Someone was behind. Maya felt it in her gut. A moment later, quick steps. She stopped abruptly and turned around. A man in a security uniform. But the badge was fake. The restraint, the body, the behavior. A mercenary. She had seen dozens of them. In his hand, a pistol. He didn't have time to raise his weapon. Tariq rushed at him first. knocking him down on the concrete floor. A few blows, and he was already unconscious. "Are you sure you're a student?" Maya breathed out, picking up his ID. "I read a lot, and I lived in a bad neighborhood. There's an internship there, too." They reached the back area, a metal door with an access panel. The master key worked. Beyond it, a hangar. Dust, cables, crates, and someone's voice. A transmission via the southern gateway. Helicopter at 1930. 1 extra. Await instructions. There were 3 inside. One of them was Walter. He was tied to a chair, his face battered. The other 2 were civilian guards, armed. Maya raised her gun. "Put your weapons on the floor. Immediately." One of them fired. The bullet went into the wall. She bounced behind a box. Tariq threw a metal case, hit one of the guards. A quick shootout ensued. Maya fired, hitting the shooter in the shoulder. The second tried to escape through the emergency exit, but Tariq intercepted him and knocked him down. 2 minutes later, silence. "Alive?" Maya ran up to Walter. "Barely. But yes," he whispered. They freed him and led him out into the hallway. King was already calling for transport. The car pulled up to the service entrance. Walter sat in the back seat, pressing his hand to his ribs. "I knew it would come to this, but I didn't think I'd live to see it." "Tell me," Maya said, turning on the recorder. "That's it." He spoke, calmly, monotonously, as if he was running through the entire route in his head. Fictitious medical clinics, supplies to Eastern European countries, Whitfield's logistics network, medical visas for treatment of children who disappeared after crossing the border. Commissions, kickbacks, falsified diagnoses, signatures of officials. His signature was there too. "Why did you decide to tell everything?" asked Tariq. "Because I thought my family was safe. And then my granddaughter disappeared. She is the only person close to me. They told me, keep quiet, and they will return her. I kept quiet, but they never returned her." Maya felt that he was telling the truth. King turned into the back entrance of a 1-story office building. Inside was communications equipment, a secure network. They started downloading data. On the flash drives were all the materials: correspondence, routes, dossiers, photos, financial flows. Maya uploaded everything to a cloud gateway connected to independent media and the prosecutor's office. "Once I hit send, there's no turning back," she said. "Hit," Walter replied. "It can't get any worse." She froze before sending. On the screen was a list of recipients: internal organs, international commissions, journalists. "We're in the game," Tariq said. "Until the end." She pressed the button. The transmission began. It was getting dark outside. Ahead lay the consequences, the investigations, perhaps revenge. But the moment of truth had already happened. And they had made a choice. The information spread across all channels within 2 hours. First, independent media, then blogs, human rights organizations, international platforms. In the morning, a word previously unknown to the general public appeared in the federal news: Atlanta Consortium. The list of people named in the investigation grew by the minute. Among them were current officials, employees of state structures, judges, businessmen, and medical specialists. Several senators, 1 deputy minister, and former military consultants. Some of them were arrested by lunchtime, others not in time. They disappeared. Maya watched from a temporary apartment outside Washington. Her name was not included in the publications, only the designation Federal Source M. But she understood. Sooner or later, they would come for her. That's why she didn't sleep. And she didn't stay in one place for more than a day. Tarek was next to her. During the day, he learned that his brother had indeed gone through one of the treatment programs in Texas. Officially, he died of a rare disease. Unofficially, he was moved to Estonia. Then the trail went cold. That means someone needed him, Tarek said, looking at the monitor. Which means he might be alive. We will find him, Maya said firmly. She believed in it. And also in the fact that now they had a chance to fight differently. The next day, an emergency hearing was held in Congress. Walter Mason testified under protection. He spoke for 4 hours straight, about schemes, kickbacks, lists, about signed documents, about how children were legalized under false diagnoses and then transported through private logistics chains. He cried once when he mentioned his granddaughter. She had disappeared a year ago. Walter confessed. At first he kept quiet to save her. Then, out of fear. And now he speaks because he simply cannot do otherwise. I was part of it. But I don't want to die part of this system, he said. The committee heard it. That same day, the president announced a federal investigation and a task force to combat illegal medical schemes. Maya watched all this on TV. She didn't believe in statements. She believed only in actions. But still, it was a beginning. A week later, she met King. They sat in a quiet cafe in Virginia, for the first time in a long time, unarmed, in regular clothes. Have you decided? He asked. She nodded and handed him an envelope. Inside was her resignation letter. I've done my part. No further action in this structure. King did not try to dissuade him. If you ever need it, call me, even if everything is against you. It already happened, she smiled. As he said goodbye, he only said, You brought them out. Not everyone does. Take care of yourself, Johnson. Tarek received an internship offer from a private research clinic that collaborated with an international coalition of investigators. He hesitated for a long time, then accepted. This is my road, he said. I don't want to be a spectator anymore. Before leaving, he and Maya sat on a bench near the bus station. Are you sure you don't want to come with me? He asked. I still have some work to do here, she replied. Not everything is cleaned out. You will continue, right? I don't know how to do it any other way. He nodded, hugged her, and left without looking back. That evening, Maya opened her laptop. On the screen was a secure mailbox. She entered the password, opened a draft, attached 3 files, and wrote, If you are reading this, it means I am no longer here. But you know what to do. Don't be silent. The letter was addressed to a journalist in Europe, a prosecutor, and a human rights group. These files contained data that was not included in the main case, because it was too recent or too dangerous. A week later, one of the journalists who had written about the Atlanta Consortium disappeared. Another was arrested on suspicion of disclosing state secrets. Maya watched the news without emotion. She knew this was not the end. This was just a new phase. Her phone blinked. A message from an unknown recipient. They're looking for you, but not everyone is on their side. Stay east. We'll get in touch. She smiled. Everything is as usual. The work is just beginning.